My son looked me straight in the eye and said, "Go to hell. My wife's family will live here from now on." He kicked me out of the home I built with my own hands. I left that night smiling, because what he didn't know was that the next day, everything would change. So, before we continue, please make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you so much if you've already done it, and let me know in the comments which state or country you're watching from. So, now let's continue our story. I was rinsing the last plate when Daniel walked in, arms crossed, eyes too cold for my own son. "Mom, we need to talk," he said, voice flat, like he was about to fire an employee. I wiped my hands on the towel, trying to guess what this was about. Maybe he found a job. Maybe he wanted to thank me for covering their bills these past months. "Sure," I said softly. He didn't even look at me when he spoke the next words. "Emma's parents are moving in. You need to move out." For a second, I didn't understand. "Move out?" My voice cracked. "What do you mean? This is my house." He shrugged like it was nothing. "Not anymore. We've decided. It makes more sense for them to be here. You'll figure something out." I stared at him, waiting for him to laugh, to say he was joking. But he wasn't. My own son stood there telling me to leave the home I built brick by brick after his father died. "Daniel," I whispered, gripping the edge of the counter. "You can't be serious," he smirked. Then, that smirk that didn't belong on my boy's face. "I'm dead serious. Go stay with a friend or—" He paused, eyes hard as steel. "Go to hell." "I don't care." My chest tightened so hard I thought I'd collapse. "Why?" was all I could manage. He didn't even flinch. "Because this is our family now. Emma's family. We're building a future here. You're old. You'll be fine." Emma walked in then, holding her phone, smirking like she'd won some prize. "Is she still here?" she asked, tone dripping with contempt. Daniel didn't answer her. He just turned to me. "Start packing tonight." My mind went blank. For years I worked 2 jobs to give him everything. And now I was disposable. I wanted to scream, to beg, to shake him until he remembered who I was. Instead, I stood there frozen, the taste of betrayal thick in my mouth. Emma leaned against the doorframe, sipping wine, scrolling on her phone like my pain was entertainment. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be," she said without even looking at me. My throat burned, but no tears fell. Not in front of them. I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. "Fine," I said, my voice quiet, almost calm. Daniel looked surprised, like he expected a fight, but I just smiled, small, cold, controlled. "I'll leave." Emma laughed lightly. "Good decision." I walked past them, each step heavier than the last. And as I reached the stairs, I heard Daniel say, "Make sure she's out by tomorrow." My hand gripped the railing. Tomorrow. After everything I did for him, I was being thrown out like trash. I kept walking, my head high, even as my heart shattered into pieces. They thought they'd won. They thought I was powerless, but they had no idea what was coming next. I climbed the stairs slowly, gripping the railing like it could hold my broken heart together. Every step felt heavier than the last, as if the walls were watching me, whispering everything I didn't want to hear. This house wasn't just wooden bricks. It was my life. My husband's laughter had once echoed here. Daniel's first steps were on this very floor. And now I was being erased from it like I never mattered. I walked into my bedroom, shut the door quietly, and just stood there for a moment, staring at the bed I bought after his father passed. My legs gave out, and I sat on the edge, pressing my hands into my lap so hard my knuckles turned white. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask the universe what I had done to deserve this. Instead, I reached for the old suitcase in the closet. The zipper was stiff from years of not being used. My fingers trembled as I opened drawers and started folding clothes. A shirt, a sweater. Each piece of fabric held a memory I wasn't ready to give up. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped my wedding photo. I stared at it for a long time. His smile used to give me strength. Now I wondered what he would say if he saw this. I wanted to hear his voice telling me what to do, but all I had was silence and the faint sound of laughter downstairs. Their laughter. It crawled up the stairs and into my bones like a warning. I froze, listening. Emma's voice rang out, sweet but sharp. "Yes, Mom, it's all ours now, finally." I closed my eyes. That word, ours, burned through me like acid. Everything I worked for, everything I gave, reduced to a prize they couldn't wait to claim. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. I grabbed more clothes and stuffed them into the suitcase without folding. Tears blurred my vision, but I refused to let them fall. Not yet, not in front of them, not ever. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message from my friend, Linda. How are you holding up? I stared at the screen, fingers hovering, but I couldn't reply. How do you explain that your own child just threw you out like trash? That the boy you raised with your bare hands now looks at you like a burden? I zipped the suitcase and stood there, looking around one last time. The curtains I sewed myself, the little crack in the mirror from when Daniel threw his toy too hard. My life was in these walls, but I couldn't take the walls with me. My legs felt like lead as I dragged the suitcase down the stairs. I could hear them talking in the living room. Emma again, louder this time. Make sure she doesn't take anything that belongs to us. My breath caught. Belongs to us. My grip on the suitcase tightened until my nails dug into the handle. Daniel didn't say a word to stop her. He just let her spit those words out like venom. When I reached the bottom, Emma was standing there with her arms crossed, smirking. Leaving so soon? She asked, sipping wine like it was a celebration. I stared at her, then at my son. He wouldn't even look at me. My throat ached with 1,000 things I wanted to say, but I swallowed them all and smiled instead. A small, cold smile that made Emma blink. Yes, I said quietly. I'm leaving. She tilted her head, mocking. Good. We'll send your things if we find any more. My heart splintered, but I didn't show it. I walked past her slowly, each step burning into my memory. I opened the door, and the night air hit my face like a slap. For a second, I almost turned back, almost begged. But then I remembered his words. Go to hell. I don't care. I walked to my car and put the suitcase in the back. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, breath shaking. I started the engine, but I didn't drive off right away. I sat there staring at the house I built, the house I bled for. And as I watched the lights flicker in the windows, something inside me hardened. They thought they'd won. They thought I had nothing left. But they were wrong. Very wrong. I sat in the car with my hands gripping the steering wheel, staring at the empty road in front of me. My chest heaved like I had run a marathon, but I hadn't moved an inch. The house lights were still behind me, glowing like a cruel reminder of what I had just lost. I wiped my face roughly, not sure if it was sweat or tears, and whispered to myself, You really did it, Daniel. You really kicked me out. My throat burned as the words left my lips, and for a moment I thought I'd break down right there. But then my phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I picked it up, and my eyes landed on a name that made my heart slow. Lisa. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I stared at her name, the corners of my lips curling just a little because Lisa wasn't just my friend. She was my lawyer. I called her a few months back when things started feeling wrong, when Emma began asking too many questions about my finances, when Daniel suddenly started talking about our home like he built it with his own 2 hands. I remember lying awake one night thinking, what if they try to take everything? That thought ate at me until I finally called Lisa and said, Help me protect what's mine. And she did. A quiet laugh slipped out of me now, low and bitter. They thought I was stupid. They thought I didn't see what was coming. But the truth was that house wasn't even mine anymore. Legally, it belonged to Lisa. I signed the transfer papers months ago, tucked them away in her office, and told no one, not even Linda. So, as far as the law was concerned, Daniel and Emma were squatting in Lisa's property right now. My phone buzzed again. I swiped to answer. You okay? Lisa's calm voice slid through the speaker. I let out a shaky breath. He did it, I whispered. He told me to leave. Emma's family is moving in. There was a pause, then a low chuckle from her end. Well, that's going to be a problem for them. I leaned back in my seat, staring at the night sky through the windshield. I walked out smiling, I said almost to myself. They think they broke me. Good, Lisa said. Let them think that. Tomorrow morning I'll make the call. My heart thudded harder. You mean they'll have 72 hours to vacate? No extensions? A strange calm washed over me as I listened. For the first time tonight, I didn't feel powerless. I didn't feel small. I felt steady. Thank you, Lisa, I said quietly. Don't thank me yet, she replied. This is only the beginning. When the call ended, I sat there for another few minutes, the silence heavy but no longer suffocating. My fingers tightened on the steering wheel. They thought they won. They thought they pushed me out for good. But tomorrow the game changes. They're about to learn something very important. You don't destroy a woman who's already been through hell because hell taught her how to fight. I woke up the next morning with a kind of stillness in my chest that didn't belong there. It wasn't peace. No, peace is warm and soft. This was cold, heavy, like a stone sitting deep inside me. I lay in the small guest room at Linda's house, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of traffic outside. My body was exhausted, but my mind hadn't stopped racing all night. I kept hearing Daniel's voice, those words cutting through me over and over. Go to hell. I don't care. The way he said it, like I was nothing. Like 29 years of my life, the sleepless nights, the sacrifices, the double shifts to buy him clothes when he was little, meant absolutely nothing. I sat up slowly, my throat dry. The clock on the nightstand read 8:17 a.m. For a long time, I just sat there trying to calm my breath. Part of me wanted to cry again, but I didn't. Not anymore. I couldn't. Tears didn't solve anything. Yesterday, I walked out of my home with a smile on my face. Even though my soul was screaming, that smile wasn't for them. It was for me. A promise to myself that this wasn't over. I got dressed quietly, pulling on a gray sweater and black slacks from the suitcase I packed in silence last night. Every fold of those clothes carried a memory. But now wasn't the time for memories. Now was the time to follow through. I grabbed my phone and my car keys and drove until I found a quiet cafe near Lisa's office. The sun was bright, too bright for the way I felt inside. The cafe was nearly empty, just a couple of students with laptops and an older man reading a newspaper. I slid into a corner booth and ordered a black coffee I had no intention of drinking. When the cup arrived, I wrapped my hands around it anyway, staring into the dark liquid like it could give me answers. My phone buzzed and my heart jumped until I saw the name on the screen, Lisa. I swiped it open and read her text. It's done. My lips curved into a slow, bitter smile. My fingers trembled slightly as I typed back, "Thank you." I put the phone down and leaned back in the booth, letting out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. I could see it all so clearly in my mind, because while I wasn't there, I knew exactly what was happening at that very moment in the house I built with my own two hands. The knock on the door would have sounded sharp, deliberate, not the kind of knock you ignore. Emma probably opened it, phone in hand, that fake sweet smile plastered on her face. I could almost hear her voice, sharp and arrogant. "Yes, can I help you?" Then the lawyer Lisa sent would have answered in that calm, non-nonsense tone of his. "Are you Mrs. Harris?" "Yes," she would have said, her smile tightening. "Why?" "I'm here to deliver an official notice," he would have replied, holding out the papers. "This property is legally owned by Lisa Carter. You and your family are occupying it without consent. You have 72 hours to vacate." I pictured Emma's laugh, loud, brittle, the kind people use when they're cornered. "There's been some mistake," she would have snapped. "This is our home." The lawyer wouldn't flinch. "No mistake, ma'am. You are trespassing. Failure to comply will result in law enforcement involvement." I smiled to myself in the cafe, my fingers tightening around the cup. For months, I let them make me feel powerless. For months, I kept quiet while they whispered, planned, and plotted behind my back. And now the law was standing at my door, reminding them just how powerless they really were. My phone buzzed again, this time Lisa calling. I answered immediately. "Is he there?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Lisa chuckled softly. "He's there." And Emma's voice is shaking now. "I almost feel bad for her." She paused. "What about Daniel?" My throat tightened around his name. "He just walked in," she said. Grabbed the papers right out of my guy's hand like they'd burn him. "He's yelling now. Something about mistakes and calling his lawyer." I laughed bitterly. "His lawyer? He doesn't even have a job." Lisa laughed too, low and cold. "He's trying to call you, by the way. He's been pacing, phone in his hand. Want to guess what he'll say?" My eyes dropped to the screen as it lit up with Daniel's name flashing like a wound that wouldn't close. For a second, my heart betrayed me. A part of me wanted to pick up to hear him say, "I'm sorry, Mom. I was wrong. Come home." But deep down, I knew that wasn't what I'd hear. No. His voice would be sharp, angry, dripping with entitlement. He'd blame me. He'd call me selfish. He'd twist it all until I was the villain. I stared at the phone until it stopped ringing, then whispered into the silence, "Not today." When I hung up with Lisa, I stayed in that cafe for a long time, watching people come and go while my coffee grew cold. My hands were steady now. My heart was too. They thought they threw me out and left me with nothing. They thought they could strip me of my dignity and take the very roof over my head. But now they were the ones packing boxes. Now they were the ones losing sleep. And deep inside me, something shifted. I wasn't broken anymore. I wasn't begging. I wasn't their victim. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I was back in control. And this was only the beginning. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Daniel's name lit up the screen over and over like an alarm I couldn't shut off. For a long moment, I just stared at it, my hands trembling slightly on the cafe table. I already knew how this conversation would go. It wouldn't be an apology. It wouldn't be him saying he realized what he'd done. It would be anger, accusations, maybe even insults. But part of me still wanted to hear his voice, my son's voice, the boy I raised, the boy I loved more than life itself. I picked up on the sixth ring. Hello? My voice came out flat, steady, even though my chest was pounding. Mom, he snapped. No warmth, no hesitation, just rage. What the hell did you do? I closed my eyes briefly, letting his anger wash over me like a wave I refused to drown in. What do you mean? I asked quietly. Don't play dumb, he shouted, so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. A lawyer just showed up saying this house isn't ours, that it's owned by some Lisa person. Is this a joke? I let out a slow breath, gripping the edge of the table until my knuckles ached. It's not a joke, I said calmly. There was a pause on his end, just his heavy breathing. Then you did this. You went behind my back and took my house away from me. His house. The words hit me like a slap. Your house? I repeated, my voice shaking, but steady enough to cut. Daniel. This house was mine long before Emma even knew your name, he scoffed. Ours then, ours. Emma and I planned a future here, and now you've ruined it. Do you even care what you've done to us? I bit down hard on my lip until I tasted blood, because if I didn't, I'd scream, What I've done to you! My voice cracked on the first word, then hardened like steel. You told me to go to hell yesterday, Daniel. You stood in my kitchen and told me to leave the home I built because Emma's family needed it more, and now you're angry because you can't steal what doesn't belong to you. He cursed under his breath. Steal? Are you insane? You owe me. I'm your son. That word snapped something inside me. Years of memories flashed in an instant. His tiny hand gripping mine on the first day of school. The nights I stayed awake sewing his Halloween costumes because we couldn't afford new ones. The years I gave every piece of myself to make sure he never went without. I owe you nothing, I said, each word sharp and deliberate. You're a grown man, Daniel. You made your choice when you let that woman speak to me like I was dirt under her shoe. You made your choice when you told me to get out of my own home. He started to speak, but I didn't let him. You know what hurts the most? I whispered, my throat tight, tears burning my eyes even though I refused to let them fall. It's not losing the house. It's losing the son I thought I had. There was silence on the other end for a beat, and for a fleeting second, I thought I heard his breath hitch. But then he came back, his voice harder than before. Fine. You want a war? You've got one. The line went dead before I could respond. I sat there frozen, staring at the black screen, my hand still clutching the phone like it could keep me from falling apart. My chest ached, my throat burned, and for the first time in years, I felt something I couldn't put into words. Not hate, not love, just a deep hollow ache where my son used to be. I placed the phone on the table slowly, my fingers trembling. I thought I'd cry again, but I didn't. Instead, I laughed, a bitter, broken laugh that tasted like iron, because he still didn't get it. He still thought this was a game he could win. He still believed I'd crumble like I always did. But he was wrong, dead wrong. I whispered to myself, You have no idea what's coming, Daniel. And as I sat there in that cafe, surrounded by strangers and the hum of life going on around me, I felt something dark and steady take root inside me. Not revenge, not hate, just resolve. They thought they could break me. They thought they could erase me. But now the war they wanted, it was about to begin. I thought Daniel's call was the worst of it. I was wrong. That night, my phone kept vibrating on the nightstand while I tried to close my eyes and breathe. But when Linda walked into the guest room holding her phone, her face pale, I knew something else had happened. You need to see this, she said quietly, handing me her screen. My heart stopped. There it was. A Facebook post with Emma's smiling face and a caption that made me want to throw up. My cruel mother-in-law kicked us out with a baby on the way. We have nowhere to go. How can someone be so heartless? Beneath it were hundreds of comments, strangers calling me evil. A woman wrote, "How can a mother do this to her own son? Shame on her." My hands shook as I scrolled through message after message of hate. People calling me names, threatening me. My stomach turned. I could barely breathe. "She made me the villain," I whispered, my voice breaking. "She wants the whole world to hate me." Linda touched my arm gently. "Don't read them. It's not worth it." But I couldn't stop. Every comment cut deeper. If she were my mother, I'd disown her too. Selfish old hag. It was like watching strangers rip me apart, while Emma sat there enjoying every second. I tossed the phone on the bed and pressed my hands to my face, shaking. For a moment, I doubted everything. Did I go too far? Should I have just stayed quiet and walked away? Was I really this horrible person they were painting me as? I sat there drowning in guilt until something caught my eye. A line buried in Emma's post. She wrote, "We were planning to fix the house and maybe even sell it to start our new life." My breath froze. Sell it? They planned to sell my home. That wasn't just betrayal. It was theft. My sadness turned to rage so fast I could taste it. All those tears I shed for Daniel, for the boy I thought I raised, dried up in an instant. This wasn't just about me anymore. They wanted to destroy me completely, take everything I had left, and play victim while doing it. I grabbed my phone and called Lisa. She answered on the first ring. "You saw the post," she said calmly, like she already knew. "Lisa," I whispered, my voice shaking with anger now, not fear. She wrote they were going to sell my house. They were going to take everything. "I know," Lisa said. "And that's exactly what we needed." That's fraud. Intent to sell property they never owned. This just made our case 10 times stronger. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone so tight it hurt. "I want to finish this, Lisa. No more warnings. No more chances. I want them out of my life for good." She didn't hesitate. "Then we move forward. I'll prepare the paperwork tonight." When the call ended, I stared at the wall, my heartbeat pounding like a drum. Emma thought she humiliated me. She thought she won. But she didn't realize something. I've been humiliated before. Life kicked me down more times than I can count. But I always got up. And now I wasn't just getting up. I was coming for everything they thought they could take from me. I whispered to myself, "You wanted a war, Emma. You're about to get one." And as the room fell silent, I opened Facebook and looked at her smiling picture one last time, memorizing that smug expression because soon that smile would be gone. The next morning, I woke up with one thought in my head. I was done letting them drag me through the mud. Emma's post was still spreading like wildfire online, and strangers who didn't know a thing about me were calling me names I'd never heard before. I sat on the edge of the bed at Linda's, gripping my phone so hard my fingers hurt. I scrolled one last time through the comments. The more I read, the more something hardened inside me. They wanted the world to hate me. Fine, but the law was on my side, and now I was going to use it. My phone rang. Lisa. I didn't even say hello before blurting, "Tell me you have good news." Her voice was calm, steady, like a lifeline in a storm. "I do. The paperwork is ready. We're filing today." I exhaled, my heart pounding. What does that mean exactly? "It means," she said slowly, "Daniel and Emma aren't just facing eviction anymore. That post, the part where Emma admitted they planned to sell the house, that's evidence of intent to commit real estate fraud. We're adding charges." My breath caught. "Fraud? That sounds serious." "It is," she said. "If they push this, they'll end up in court. If they're smart, they'll back down and walk away quietly. But something tells me Emma isn't that smart." I let out a bitter laugh. "You're right about that." My fingers dug into my knees as I whispered, "I can't believe this is happening." I raised him to be better than this, Lisa. I gave him everything. And now he's letting her destroy both of us. There was silence for a beat. Then Lisa said gently, "You're not the one who should feel ashamed. He made his choice. Now you need to make yours. Do you want to go all the way?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes, I want this finished." "Then meet me at the office in an hour," she said. "We'll file, and I'll have an officer deliver the final notice today." When I hung up, my hands were still shaking, but not from fear this time. It was something else, a mix of anger, grief, and something I hadn't felt in weeks: control. For so long, I let them decide everything: where I lived, what I lost, how the world saw me. But now I was the one calling the shots. I got dressed, pulled my hair back, and stared at myself in the mirror. My face looked tired, older than yesterday. But my eyes were sharp again. "No more tears," I whispered. "Not for them." At Lisa's office, the papers felt heavy in my hands when she slid them across the desk. "Sign here," she said, her tone calm but firm. "Once you do, this becomes official." My pen hovered for a second. For years, I signed school forms, medical papers, checks, all for Daniel, always for him. And now, here I was signing something that could ruin his life. My throat tightened. But then I remembered Emma's smirk, Daniel's voice telling me to go to hell, and that post that turned me into a monster for the world to hate. I pressed the pen down hard and signed. When I looked up, Lisa gave a small nod. "You just took back your power." I walked out of that office feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because I finally stood up for myself. Heavier because this wasn't just about property anymore. It was about blood, betrayal, and a bond I didn't know if I could ever mend. As I reached my car, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I opened it and my heart stopped. "Please, Mom, don't do this. We have nowhere else to go." For a moment, my fingers hovered over the keyboard. My eyes blurred with tears that burned hot and bitter. But then I remembered every word he said to me, every look of contempt, every choice he made. I locked the screen without replying and whispered to myself, "You should have thought of that before." I started the car, my jaw set, knowing this was the point of no return. If I crossed this line, there was no going back, and I was already halfway over. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in my living room folding laundry when the news alert popped up on my phone. At first, I thought it was another cruel comment from strangers online, but when I opened it, my heart skipped a beat. Local couple under investigation for attempted real estate fraud. There it was. Daniel and Emma's names in black and white plastered across the news for the world to see. My hands froze mid-fold as I stared at their wedding photo that the reporter must have pulled from Facebook. I read every line slowly, almost in disbelief, even though I knew this was coming. The article explained how they tried to sell a property they didn't legally own, how the rightful owner, Lisa, took legal action. It even mentioned possible fines and probation if charges stuck. My breath came out shaky as I whispered, "God, what have you done, Daniel?" My phone buzzed, and I didn't need to look to know who it was. I swiped to voicemail, but the message came through almost instantly. His voice was hoarse, panicked. "Mom, please. They're talking about jail." Emma's crying. "We don't know what to do. I'm begging you. Just call me back, please." My chest tightened so hard I pressed my hand against it, but I didn't move. For a second, guilt pricked at me, sharp and quick like a needle. This was my son, my flesh and blood. I thought of him as a boy, running through that same house with scraped knees, asking for one more bedtime story. And now here he was, a grown man drowning in a mess he made himself. My eyes stung, but I didn't cry. I couldn't. Not after everything. This wasn't my doing. This was the consequence of his choices, of Emma's greed, of both of them thinking love meant they could walk all over me without consequence. Lisa called while I was still sitting there, my laundry forgotten on my lap. "You saw the news?" she asked. "I did," I said quietly. "It feels strange, like I should be happy, but I'm not." "You're human," she said softly. "It's your son, but don't confuse justice with revenge. This was about protecting yourself, and you did what you had to do." I closed my eyes. "Will they go to jail?" "Not if they cooperate," Lisa said. "Most likely a heavy fine, maybe probation. They'll learn a lesson either way." I thanked her and ended the call, staring at the muted TV screen where their names kept scrolling. Emma's Facebook account had gone silent. Her family wasn't posting pictures of fancy dinners anymore. They'd disappeared, hiding from the shame they tried to put on me. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to relief. Not joy, not triumph, but a quiet sense that the scales were finally balanced. I picked up another shirt from the laundry pile and folded it slowly, my hand steady this time. But just as I placed it down, my phone lit up again. Another message from Daniel. I almost didn't read it, but curiosity got the better of me. "I'm sorry, Mom. Please, I messed up everything." I stared at those words until they blurred, my throat tightening all over again. Sorry. 2 little syllables that came too late, buried under all the hurt. I didn't reply. I couldn't. Instead, I set the phone down, wiped my hands on my jeans, and whispered into the quiet room. I hope you finally understand what you cost me, because the truth was, this wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about a bond I wasn't sure could ever be repaired. And deep down, I knew that even if the law gave them mercy, life had already handed down its verdict. I sat alone in my small kitchen, staring at the wall as the hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. The laundry was folded, the dishes were done, but my mind was a mess I couldn't clean up. The TV was off. I didn't want to hear more news. Didn't want another headline screaming Daniel and Emma's names. For a few minutes, I just sat there with my hands resting on the table, tracing the edge with my fingertip like it could ground me. Then my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it, thinking it was another alert or someone sending me the article again. But when I glanced at the screen, my heart sank. It was Daniel. The text was short, only 6 words. I'm sorry, Mom. I messed up everything. My throat tightened instantly. I stared at those words until they blurred. My chest was heavy with something I couldn't name. Anger, love, grief, all tangled into one unbearable knot. For a moment, I felt the air leave my lungs, and I whispered out loud, "You should have said that sooner." My fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling. I typed 3 different responses, deleting each one. It's too late. Delete. You hurt me too much. Delete. Come home. Delete. I set the phone down and pressed my hands against my face, feeling the sting behind my eyes. How did we get here? How did we go from birthday cakes and bedtime stories to legal papers and news headlines? I wanted to call him. I wanted to hear his voice like it used to be, soft and boyish when he still looked at me like I was his whole world. But then I remembered Emma's smug smile, his voice saying, "Go to hell." I don't care. I remembered the day I carried my suitcase out of my own house while they laughed in the kitchen. My chest burned with the memory, and my hands dropped from my face, fists clenched. I picked the phone up again and typed slowly this time, each word like a piece of glass cutting me open. I'll always love you, but I can't save you from yourself. My finger hovered over send for what felt like forever before I finally pressed it. The screen went dark, and the silence in the kitchen grew louder than ever. I sat there for a long time, my eyes fixed on nothing, wondering if those words would be the last I ever said to him. Wondering if this was the end of us as mother and son. I didn't know the answer. All I knew was that love, real love, wasn't supposed to hurt this much. 6 months later, I woke up to sunlight pouring into my small apartment by the ocean. The sound of waves drifted through the window, soft and steady, like a heartbeat that never betrayed me. I slid out of bed and walked into my tiny kitchen, where a basket of fresh bread sat cooling on the counter. My mornings were simple now, coffee, baking, and the quiet hum of peace. No shouting, no judgment, no footsteps that carried resentment. Just me. For the first time in years, I felt like I belonged somewhere. I opened the window wider, letting the breeze kiss my face as I stared at the ocean, endless and blue, and whispered to myself, I survived. It wasn't easy. The nights were the hardest at first. Nights when I'd roll over and see the empty space where my husband used to be, and now the absence of my son, too. Nights when my mind replayed every word Daniel threw at me, every look of contempt in Emma's eyes. But then I'd remind myself this wasn't about losing. This was about letting go, and I had to, because holding on was killing me. I poured coffee into a chipped mug and sat at the little table by the window, scrolling through my phone without purpose. Daniel hadn't called in months. His last message was still there, unread after the one I replied to that night. Sometimes I hovered over it, tempted to open the conversation, to say something, anything. But then I remembered the weight I carried. When I loved people who didn't love me back the same way, I couldn't go through that again. Still, a part of me hoped he was okay, that he learned something from all of this, that maybe one day he'd walk through my door without anger in his eyes. My gaze drifted to the photograph on the wall. Me and Daniel when he was 5, his arms wrapped around my neck, both of us smiling like the world couldn't touch us. I smiled faintly, tracing the frame with my fingertips. "I'll always love you," I whispered, the words for him, even if he couldn't hear them. After breakfast, I tied my apron and started kneading dough for the bakery down the street where I worked part-time now. My hands moved slowly, pressing, folding, shaping, like I was piecing myself back together, one loaf at a time. It was honest work. It smelled like comfort. It gave me something to hold when everything else had slipped through my fingers. By afternoon, the aroma filled the room, and I felt a strange warmth in my chest. A quiet victory. Not over Daniel or Emma, not even over the past, but over the part of me that thought I couldn't live without them. That part was gone. I had survived betrayal, humiliation, loneliness, and now I had peace. I glanced out the window one last time, the sea shimmering under the golden sky, and let out a breath that felt like release. "Goodbye, Daniel," I murmured softly. "Wherever you are, I hope you find your way." Then I turned back to the counter, brushed the flour from my hands, and smiled. Not for anyone else, not for show, but for me, because for the first time in a long time, my life was mine again. And that was enough.